A Kentucky restaurant owner known for giving out free meals to law enforcement was killed after officers and the Kentucky National Guard returned fire, allegedly, on a group of people gathered outside of his restaurant early Monday. So the restaurant owner is David McCaddy. And he is, he was beloved in the community. He owned Yaya's Barbecue in Louisville. And he was super friendly with the cops, never had any problems with them. And so the protests start, and apparently there was a group of protesters gathered in front of Dino's Food Mart, which is right next to the barbecue restaurant. And the police opened fire, and unfortunately, first of all, they shouldn't open fire at all, regardless of who the victim ends up being. But in this case, it was David McCaddy, and he lost his life. Now, here's what we know about the cop who opened fire. It's Officer Katie Cruz, and she has been put on administrative reassignment after her involvement in this shooting. Here's a picture of her. Apparently, before she was involved in this fatal shooting, she was mocking a demonstrator on Facebook using a picture from the Courier Journal. So here's the image. You see a protester, holding flowers up to this cop. And again, she used this image to mock the protester. And here's what she wrote. "I hope the pepper balls that got lit up with a little later on hurt. Come back and get you some more, old girl. I'll be on the line again tonight." That was her reaction to a peaceful protester who tried to hand her flowers during the protests. She should be fired, and she should also be prosecuted for just indiscriminately opening fire on a crowd of people. But I should also note that there were other consequences, including the police chief, Steve Conrad, getting fired.
He got fired because they had not turned their cameras on. My guess is if you got fired for that, it was probably a regular practice. And that's why the police chief would get fired. So let's talk about the different offenses here. First of all, on the protester that she was yelling at on Facebook, saying that I hope you got hurt by the pepper balls that you got hit with. That's a hell of a thing. Then taunting her to come back out so she can get assaulted again by the cops is another hell of a thing. And she says, she looked like she's giving me flowers, but she also said some things to me. Why? Who cares? Who cares if she says something to you? Well, disrespecting a police officer, biggest crime in America. So, I can't wait to assault you again. Now, that's terrible, but relatively minor compared to what happened the next night. So with McCaddy, he's basically an entrepreneur. He does this barbecue stand. They literally says in the paper, pillar of the community. Hundreds of people showed up the next night to mourn him. And in the beginning, the night that he got killed, there was no protest. There was a curfew, and it's true that they were violating the curfew, but that was to get his barbecue. They were around his barbecue stand. And there were no protests at all. So the cops went there looking for trouble, cops and the National Guard, and they think they heard a loud noise. That's true. And they thought maybe it's a gunshot. Here's the part that's amazing. They then fired a dozen shots 9 seconds later. Wait a minute. If it was a gunshot and you were worried about your life and protecting yourself, and you were positive it was a gunshot, you would have fired immediately. You took 9 seconds to think it through, and there was no further loud noises. Then you decided to open fire indiscriminately into a crowd and kill a guy who had been historically had given the cops free food all the time, and his dream was to take the stand and in that same lot build a restaurant. And he was actually on his way there, and that's why there were so many people around his stand even during a curfew, because he was celebrated in the community, including earlier by the cops when they were getting free food. Look, firing into a crowd indiscriminately should be charged with murder. If any of you did it, you would be charged with murder, of course. And the prosecutors would say, what are you, nuts? I mean, at a bare minimum, it's negligent homicide. Why the hell are you firing into a crowd? Well, I thought maybe that a loud noise I heard was a gunshot 9 seconds ago. You'd be convicted so quick. And if it's a cop, they say, well, they were trying to protect themselves. No, they weren't. They should be convicted they should be convicted easier, not harder. Why? Because it's a cop's job to be responsible. We gave you a badge and a gun that comes with tremendous responsibility. You should show more restraint, and because your job is supposed to be a risky, dangerous one, and we appreciate that you're taking that risk. If it's not a risky job and you fire into crowds indiscriminately on the off chance that you might be in danger or was in danger some time ago, well, then it's not a hard job at all. And you violated that trust and responsibility that we gave you. It should be the highest priority of prosecutors to put those cops away. Instead, of course, as we all know, it's the lowest priority. In fact, oftentimes, as happened in Ferguson, the cops act as the defense attorney rather than local prosecutors act as the defense attorney rather than as the prosecutor. And so that's what happened in the Mike Brown case. And so it's, will there be justice there for this guy who was loved in the community? If history is any judge, no. And later she'll be hired by another police department a couple of years later after things calm down. Why? Because it's the only job in America that if you do it poorly, other police departments, other people in that profession can't wait to hire you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.